The more things change, the more they stay the same, is probably the perfect title for today's SmackDown review from February 7, 2020. I really thought they really had me going there for a few weeks, that I thought SmackDown would be on the ascent again in the first few weeks of 2020. They brought back John Morrison, the Usos, Sheamus, and all of whom I'm still invested in on SmackDown, but the storylines are not getting any better. If anything, we're still getting the same storylines that we were a month and a half ago. That's the issue. The Blue brand does not let things go. They don't know when to get a hint that these feuds aren't working. We're still getting Shinsuke Nakamura versus Braun Strowman after 2 months, even though Braun has literally won at every fucking turn. And hey, listen, I'm all for not 50-50 booking. I'm all for booking someone to look strong. But why the fuck would I care to see Nakamura versus Braun again for the Intercontinental Championship if I know Braun's going to win? Sheamus and Shorty G. First of all, the Shorty G Chad Gable gimmick fucking sucks. It's a complete waste of Chad Gable. The matches have been decent, but far from as good as they could be. And he looks like a loser. Why would I want to see a third match between Sheamus and Shorty G? And that brings me to Roman Reigns versus King Corbin. That is still going on after 4 months. The feud started as soon as they arrived on Fox 4 fucking months ago. And they're still doing this. They had a match on SmackDown before Survivor Series. They had a match at the TLC pay-per-view. They had a match at the Royal Rumble. They had a match last week on SmackDown, albeit a 6-man tag team match, but it still counts, where the loser had to eat dog food. And that wasn't it. That wasn't enough for these people. They're booking another fucking match between the big dog and King Corbin at Super ShowDown inside a steel cage. Who the fuck could possibly care? Really, and I've said this before, and again, they had me going there for the first few weeks of 2020, thinking SmackDown might be better in the new year, but it's already gone back to being as dull as it was in the final month or two of 2019. SmackDown, as I've said many times before, is no better. If anything, it's only been worse since they went to Fox. I don't think that's a Fox issue. I think that's WWE, for whatever reason, why they're putting the opposite amount of effort into making SmackDown their flagship show, a better show, the must-see show of the week. I have no idea. It's beyond me. NXT will always be the best show that WWE puts on all week. Raw, not that it's coming close, but it's been a very good show lately. I honestly thought Monday's episode of Raw was fantastic. NXT had a great show on Wednesday. I'm cautiously optimistic that SmackDown will complete the trifecta and we'll get a great show on Friday. What do? They produced one of the more forgettable episodes in recent memory. And yeah, we had the return of the dirt sheet. They had a number one contenders main event for the women. They had Goldberg announcing that he was facing Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, for the Universal Championship at Super ShowDown. Yet I still feel like the 2 hours were a waste. I feel like very little was accomplished. Very little of that show was entertaining. And I just felt like I wasted my time. I feel like if I don't watch the show live, which has happened many times over the last month and a half, I'm not missing anything. I mean, obviously, I'll still watch the show to review it. It's part of my job. But if it wasn't, I probably wouldn't watch the show. Because there's really no reason to go back and watch these things. Because it's a complete joke, to be honest with you. I know Groundhog Day was on Sunday. I feel like it's every single Friday. We're seeing the same shit week after fucking week. It's amazing to me. To kick off the show, we had the return of the dirt sheet, as I mentioned earlier. This did not receive rave reviews from most people on the internet, from what I saw anyway. I personally enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I like The Miz. I like John Morrison. I like the dirt sheet. You got to realize something. These dirt sheets that they do are intentionally terrible. They do that on purpose. So if you're shitting on this, but praising what they were doing a decade ago, I don't know where the fuck you've been. Because these dirt sheets are not meant to be... I mean, they are entertaining, at least for me, because I get what they're going for. But they're not meant to be like these amazing... amazingly shot segments, like the cameras and stuff that they're using now compared to 2008, 2009 are better. And I thought this was good. I mean, they did a parody with the... is it the Grammys or whatever the fuck it is coming to the Academy Awards? I don't know. The Oscars coming up this Sunday. They did a parody of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. during this dirt sheet segment. And I thought it was great. I saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I get what the movie's about. You know, I've seen the trailers. I mean, obviously, I saw the actual movie. I actually rewatched it again for the first time a couple weeks ago after seeing it in theaters about 6 months ago, last summer. So I got what they were going for here. I was entertained. That's just me. A lot of people would say that this was stupid. It wasn't funny. Hey, you know what? It's all subjective. I thought this was funny. Hey, maybe you thought this was a good episode of SmackDown. So again, to each their own. I thought this was fine, though. I enjoyed it. The New Day come out. They interrupt. And then Miz and Morrison said that they beat all the top tag teams in the SmackDown Tag Team division last week in that Fatal 4-Way to earn their shot at the SmackDown Tag Team titles at Super ShowDown. Enter the Usos, as well as Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode, who, of course, weren't a part of that Fatal 4-Way to determine the number one contenders to these SmackDown Tag Team titles last week on the show. They were doing that terrible six-man tag team main event instead with King Corbin and Roman Reigns, with the loser eating dog food. They had a match. It was a good match. It was a fine match. Nothing out of the ordinary about it. It wasn't terrible either. It was a good match. I'm honestly shocked that in the month and a half that the Usos have been back, that we had yet to see until now, the Usos versus Ziggler and Roode straight up. But we got it here. It was a good match. Again, nothing really worth writing home about it, but the Usos won, as they probably should have. And that was it. I could see the Usos getting involved in the SmackDown Tag Team title picture coming out of Super ShowDown. They could always do a rematch with the New Day and Miz and Morrison at WrestleMania, which would be cool. But I could also very well see them doing some sort of multi-team tag team match as well, with the Usos and probably Roode and Ziggler. I'm not a big Roode and Ziggler fan. I do find them entertaining. I love Roode. Just Ziggler himself just does nothing for me at this point. But I could see that being a possible Fatal 4-Way for the tag titles of WrestleMania. A lot like last year's 4-Way with the Usos, Rusev, and Nakamura. Who else was a part of that match? I don't even remember, and I was fucking there. I don't even remember. God, it's going to bother me now. Ricochet and Aleister Black. And then who was the fourth team a part of that match? It wasn't the New Day. The New Day weren't in there. The Revival weren't in there. What other teams were on SmackDown at that point? Jesus Christ. You know what? It's going to bother me. I know this is completely irrelevant to the review, but I got to look it up because it's going to bother me. Let's see. No, not WrestleMania 36. This is so bad that I can't remember who was in that match. I guess that's how forgettable of a match it was. And I remember it being a good match. I just don't remember for the life of me who else was in it. The Bar. Jesus Christ, it's only been a year and I already forgot the Bar existed. But yeah, I could see them doing something similar with these four teams at WrestleMania. So then we had Elias versus Cesaro coming off what happened last week. We kind of figured this was inevitable after Elias sent Cesaro packing from the ring. The match was fine. I mean, the match was good. The crowd is getting behind Elias as a babyface, which is good. In 2020, though, as I mentioned last week, a win over Cesaro means absolutely nothing. My fucking grandmother, my dead grandmother, even though I don't have a dead grandmother, my dead grandfather could beat Cesaro in his grave. That's how meaningless Cesaro is in 2020. A win over Cesaro means absolutely nothing because everybody has beaten Cesaro. I like Elias, but where are they going with this? Because the Intercontinental Championship is in possession of Braun Strowman. So unless they intend on doing a babyface versus babyface match with those two at WrestleMania, which they won't, I'm almost positive it's going to be Strowman and Sheamus for that championship. Where do you go from here with Elias? I really feel like they missed the boat with the Elias face turn when they first tried it a year and a half ago, and they quickly went back on it for whatever reason, because he was getting over then too. But yeah, Elias wins. Who could possibly care though about Cesaro losing again? I mean, I know he's been here for almost a decade, and people have said, "Oh, let's do what we did for Kofi for Cesaro. Let's rally behind him." Well, the clock is ticking, people. The clock is fucking ticking. Cesaro strikes me as a person who, at this point, he's a very nice guy. He's there to make the most of whatever he's a part of, and that's wonderful. But I feel like at this point, he has zero interest in going to an AEW or doing whatever else. I really do. I feel like if he was going to leave, he would have left already, because he's been misused for years. So why leave now over a year ago, 2 years ago? Maybe he's been under contract for the last 5 years. Who the fuck knows? But I cannot see a scenario where they push Cesaro. We are far past that point, unfortunately. He's quickly approaching Dolph Ziggler territory at this point. Not nearly as annoying or as much of a turn-off on TV, but he's I mean, again, he's great, but I feel like at this point, in terms of me not caring about him and not thinking he'll ever be pushed, we're quickly approaching that territory. So then King Corbin comes out, who was the ultimate asshole. He went to the production truck after they replayed the dog food eating angle from last week. He goes to the production truck, and he beats up one of the production people, throws them off a flight of stairs. We don't see that happen, so I doubt it actually happened, because the guy would probably have broken his arm or something. I thought that would be the extent of it. It wasn't. King Corbin comes out, starts trashing the audience, and he's still talking about Roman Reigns in the fucking dog food. So you know at that point, oh my God, the feud isn't over. I was hoping someone else would come out, beat the shit out of him. Who that person would be, honestly, I have no idea. We already got our fill of Strowman and Corbin over on Raw, so God no. No thank you. Mustafa Ali, maybe? Where the fuck has he been? On the back of a milk carton? Hey, Mustafa Ali. I know that isn't, the most amazing feud of all time, but hey, you know what? He gets Ali back on TV, and it makes sense with the size difference and whatever. I could see, like I've said before, Ali stepping up to face Sheamus at some point. I thought that would actually happen on the show after it didn't happen here, but no, he was once again left off the show. Anyway, so ultimately, after Corbin starts bullying a fan, which is obviously all part of the show, don't get it twisted. This was all, the guy was a plant, clearly. He was wearing a Roman Reigns shirt and all, which, who does that in 2020? For a guy over, 10 years old in the front row. I'm joking. But Roman Reigns comes out. Superman punches Baron Corbin. And then they just brawl. And then he challenges Corbin, who had, previously demanded one more match with Roman. He grants him his wish to the dismay of everyone in the audience for one more match at Super ShowDown, this time inside of a steel cage. Why do I think this won't be the end of the feud? I mean, again, who cares? They've had loser eats dog food matches. They've had falls count anywhere matches. They even had a fucking TLC match. In their first pay-per-view match, no less. So why would I think that this is not... The booking in this feud is ass backwards. Why do I feel like there's still going to be interference from the Usos, Roode, and Ziggler? I feel like these sort of stipulations always invite interference, not keep them away. Not keep the superstars at bay. And I did not mean to rhyme there. Again, who cares? Who the fuck cares? Who's even gaining anything at this point from this feud? If Corbin wins, who cares? If Roman wins again, after already beating Corbin twice last weekend at Royal Rumble, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, who the fuck could possibly care at this point? I know this is merely designed to be filler before Roman goes for the, presumably, Universal Championship at WrestleMania. And they need someone, that's why Wyatt is facing Goldberg, which I'll get to in a second. There's better ways of doing that, though. I would rather see Roman Reigns and Goldberg at Super ShowDown, have Roman beat Goldberg, get the big win. That honestly would feel like a credibility booster. Get him ready for that big title match at WrestleMania, and that'd be perfect. Wyatt doesn't have to be on the show. I know they want to fucking jack off the Saudi prince and give him all these big matches, which is wonderful. But, I mean, you don't need to have the Universal Championship defended. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's better than doing Wyatt and Bryan again, but honestly, if we're being completely honest here, I would rather see, of all the feuds being revisited right now and continued, I would rather see Wyatt and Daniel Bryan again at Super ShowDown than Roman Reigns and King Corbin. I would prefer that, honestly, over Sheamus and Shorty G or even Nakamura and Strowman. At least those matches were good. And those matches were like, oh, okay, this feud is somewhat interesting. It wasn't great, but it was better than this shit. So, anyway, we're getting Roman and Corbin again at Super ShowDown. It was also announced that we're getting Bray Wyatt versus Goldberg. Now, let me mention this. Goldberg cut his entire promo from his fucking house. And how do I know that? He was obviously in his garage. He's a car owner. He owns a lot of cars. You could see the cars right next to him. This was filmed at his house. Why? I have no idea. I have no idea why they couldn't bother to fly him out for SmackDown. I mean, again, it's not that big of a deal. He was only going to be cutting a promo for like 5 minutes with Bray Wyatt going back and forth. But still, they heavily advertised Goldberg for this show. And he didn't even appear in person. If I bought a ticket to this show and I'm like, holy shit, Goldberg's going to be there, and then he just pops up live via satellite like it's The Rock in 2011, I would be fucking pissed. Because, again, he was all over the advertising for the show. And none of this bullshit, oh, Goldberg's going to be on SmackDown, not at SmackDown. Get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. They say on SmackDown all the time. They never, unless I'm crazy here, they never say, oh, Brock Lesnar will be at Raw this week. No, they always say Brock Lesnar will be on Raw. People shit on Brock Lesnar, and the guy almost never appears, even though he's been on every Raw so far in 2020. At least the guy shows up. I don't think I've ever seen a Brock Lesnar segment on Raw that was taped via satellite, where they advertised them as heavily as they do. And yeah, he might be on the show for 30 seconds like he was this past week, but at least he's on the show. They didn't even advertise Brock for this week's Raw, and he popped up anyway. Goldberg was advertised heavily for this show, and he couldn't even bother to appear in person. I thought that was pretty shitty. Maybe it wasn't Goldberg's fault, it was a WWE call. I thought that was kind of stupid. I know it's not a big deal, but still. If that was me in the arena, I would be pissed. So basically, Goldberg lays down the challenge, says that Brock is already busy at Super ShowDown with Ricochet for his WWE Championship, so why not come back and face Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, for the Universal Championship. He felt inspired, he said, after watching that Royal Rumble, which, you know what, I did too. It was a great match. I rewatched it for the first time since it happened earlier this week. But he also said, too, which I liked, he brought up how he has unfinished business with the Universal Championship, because remember, he is a former Universal Champion. He held the belt for no more than a month. He said that his reign was oh so short, and he never got his rightful rematch, which is true. He never did. Now, granted, rematches are supposed to be obsolete in 2020, even though we get so many fucking rematches on SmackDown alone in 2020, and I feel like they do it on Raw. Yeah, so automatic rematches are a thing of the past, but they weren't when Goldberg initially, was champion back in 2017. Rematches were not a thing of the past back then at that point. Not quite yet. So he never got his rightful rematch. He's going to get it at Super ShowDown. Honestly, I like this. Like I said, it's not a dream match by any means. It's not a match that I was clamoring for. It's not a match that I thought, I can't wait to see Bray Wyatt and Goldberg. And I am still cautiously optimistic about this match. And I would have rather seen, if I had a choice, Goldberg and Roman Reigns. But this isn't a terrible idea, because Wyatt already wrapped up his feud with Daniel Bryan. He doesn't need to be on this show. But assuming he wins, which is not a guarantee, everyone's like, oh, it's so predictable, Wyatt's going to win. Is it? Is it really? Goldberg beat Kevin Owens for the Universal Championship. I know Kevin Owens and The Fiend are two totally different people, and how they're being built as champion and whatnot, and how they were built as champion and portrayed and whatnot. But he beat Owens for the Universal Championship in under 30 seconds a month out from WrestleMania. Owens was champion since August, and the initial plan was to do Owens and Jericho for the championship at WrestleMania. Now, we all kind of figured Goldberg was winning, and that he wasn't going to get beat by Kevin Owens at that point, of all people. But hey, he beat someone for their world championship a month out for WrestleMania. What's stopping Goldberg from doing the same thing now with Bray Wyatt? People would be pissed. It'd be a stupid idea. It would probably set up Goldberg and Roman at WrestleMania for the championship. And as much as I don't want to see Wyatt, the Fiend, versus Roman Reigns at Mania, at least it makes more sense than fucking Goldberg and Roman Reigns for the championship. Again, I would rather see Goldberg and Reigns as a match, but you should not interrupt the Fiend's championship run for Goldberg. I mean, I love Goldberg, but I just think that's stupid. After building him up for so long, just to have him get beat by Goldberg would be astronomically stupid. So I don't think they're going. I don't think that's where they're going with this. So thank God. I'm not going to sit here and rant and rave about how dumb it is, because I don't think it's going to happen anyway. We'll see. The match may be a complete waste of time and maybe a complete bust. It may suck. Honestly, I kind of expect it to. It's Wyatt and Goldberg here we're talking about. It's not going to be a 5-star match classic, let's be honest. But if Wyatt wins decisively, which I doubt he will, it'll probably be via bullshit or something. It's a big win for him. I mean, beating Bryan is one thing, and The Miz and whatever, who cares, Seth Rollins. But Goldberg's a big name. So to beat Goldberg, it really will, establish Wyatt as a credible champion. So I think this has pros. This has an upside if they book it properly. Speaking of Daniel Bryan, he resurfaced on the show. He was not berated, but Heath Slater was talking about, I would never let someone whip me as many times as Bray Wyatt whipped you at the Royal Rumble, and kind of kind of being a dick about it, kind of patronizing Daniel Bryan. I don't know if patronizing is the right word. I don't know if patronizing is the right word, but kind of something along those lines where he was kind of being a dick subtly to Daniel Bryan, and we haven't seen Heath Slater on TV in months. Like, literally since maybe WrestleMania 34 or 35. It's been at least a year. I have not seen him on TV since then. I know Drew McIntyre beat the shit out of him one time backstage on Raw, like maybe in May or June. That's it. I can't remember the last time we saw Heath Slater on WWE TV. So he came back here, albeit just to get squashed, but I mean, that's basically what the guy is good for at this point. And I mean, fun fact here, they actually debuted on NXT together 10 years ago this month. Daniel Bryan and Heath Slater did as part of the first season of NXT, and I think they're the only two people that were in that season that are still in the company. Otunga is still there, but he doesn't wrestle, so I don't really count him. Michael Tarver was gone from the get-go. Barrett left years ago. Ryback left years ago. PJ Black left years ago. Who else is even still in the... Darren Young got fired a couple of years ago. I can't remember who else was a part of that season. Who else was a part of the Nexus? That may be it. There's probably one or two more people I'm not thinking of. But I think Bryan and Slater are the only two members of that season. I mean, even Daniel Bryan retired at one point. They're the only two people from that season that are still active on the main roster in WWE. But anyway, this was a complete squash. Bryan hit his signature spots. It was over within minutes or whatever. He was more aggressive here. I just don't know where they're going with this, aside from maybe a feud with Sheamus, which, God no, been there, done that. What else would you do with the guy instead? Well, him and Nakamura would have been cool, but Nakamura's been beat like a fucking drum, so how much at this point would that really mean? So whatever. But, I mean, I was going to say maybe keep the belt on Nakamura and not give it to Strowman, but Strowman had to win something. The guy was losing credibility fast, and I mean, the guy was already the biggest loser in all of WWE, and he's been winning a lot more lately, which is good since he came back, 2 months ago. But still, I can't really bring myself to care about the championship, even though it's in the possession of a guy who needed the title years ago. So we'll see where they go with the Bryan thing. Like I said, Nakamura was also in the show with Strowman. They interrupted Strowman's championship celebration. Nakamura, Sami, and the Revival attempted to attack Strowman. They actually left him laying at the end. It doesn't really make me take Nakamura any more seriously than I did before, but whatever. I assume they set up a rematch for Super ShowDown. That wasn't explicitly said here, but I assume it will be set up for that show. Again, who cares? The matches weren't anything notable to begin with. They weren't anything great. Strowman, I mean, again, he's winning a lot lately, but too little too late in my opinion. It's better than nothing, but Nakamura is just a fucking loser now too, so who cares? Speaking of losers, Apollo Crews also came back on the show for the first time, I think, since Crown Jewel when he was in that number one contenders battle royal. Before that, I have no idea when the last time he was on the show. He was drafted to SmackDown a lot like Slater as part of that draft last year. I don't know what the fuck he's been up to. He's been gone for months. He was quickly disposed of here by Sheamus. I don't think he's being brought back and pushed. Not by a long shot. He was quickly squashed here by Sheamus. And I know they're building up Sheamus, and that's great, but just let the guy go. It feels like Crews just wants to get out of there. Maybe I'm wrong. He has a kid. He wants to stay where he's financially stable. I don't know. But he feels like a guy that just wants to get out, a lot like Slater. Gable came out to attempt to get one over on Sheamus, and he was bro-kicked to for his efforts. So again, he looks like a complete loser. He has yet to get one over on Sheamus. And again, what does it even mean at this point? We had the main event, Carmella knocking off Naomi, Alexa Bliss, and Dana Brooke to become the new number one contender to the SmackDown Women's Championship. The match was good. It wasn't like amazing. And that was a terrible pun. Anyway, I don't really know why this was the main event. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm glad they were the main event, but why though? Like the SmackDown Women's Championship scene has been like on ice, honestly, for as long as I can remember. Like definitely as long as Bayley's been champion, because Bayley has not been a great champion, whether it be as a babyface, as a heel. She just has not been great as champion at all. And I don't think that's entirely her fault. But even before that, what was it? Charlotte and like Asuka wasn't lighting the world on fire. Honestly, I think the last time the division was really relevant was when Becky was champion, like a year and a half ago, and Charlotte was chasing her. And even then, those were the only two real players in that division. They had Carmella, the Iconics, they just a bunch of nobodies for the most part. And it's kind of the same thing now. It's like Bayley and then everyone else. Alexa Bliss means nothing. Dana Brooke is terrible. Yeah, I honestly really expected Naomi to win here, and I'm glad they kind of swerved us because they can always save Naomi. I'm surprised she got pinned. I wouldn't have done that. She just came back. But they can always save Naomi for WrestleMania or Elimination Chamber. I would save her for Mania, especially since Sasha Banks is a question mark. The thing is, I want a Bayley and Banks match at WrestleMania, but who do you turn face? They just turned Bayley, and Sasha turned like a month before her. Not even, like mere weeks. So I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that necessarily, personally. I don't know. I think Naomi might be a smart choice because she's over right now. People like her. She's relevant, easily more relevant than anyone else in this match. Carmella and Bayley's a fun filler feud just because they have history from their NXT days. Not sure how good the match is going to be. Bayley attacked her afterwards. So, I mean, again, this could be decent. I don't know when they do it, whether it be on an upcoming episode of SmackDown. My guess is that they save it for Elimination Chamber. Unless that the one women's match they do in Saudi Arabia is this one. I was going to say Becky and Asuka, but they're actually doing that on Raw next week. So, if anything, honestly, they could do Bayley and Carmella at Super ShowDown, and I think that'd be okay. I mean, fans around the world would be pissed because they're going to be, dressed up and no skin or anything. Sorry to disappoint you. But, yeah, I mean, if you're going to book a women's match for that show, that makes sense. Bayley and Carmella. I mean, Lacey and Natalya was a total waste. I mean, the match was not that really good at all. And that match had already been done to death by that point, by October of last year. So at least Bayley and Carmella is somewhat fresh, if nothing else. And that was SmackDown. Again, a very dull show. I liked the dirt sheet. The main event got fun towards the end. Carmella winning was a pleasant surprise. Even though I wanted Naomi to win, but it's not a big deal. And what was the other thing? Honestly, I don't even really remember what else I liked about this show. I'm not going to lie to you. What else about the show that I even really... It was the dirt sheet. It was the main event. The Goldberg and Wyatt stuff. I didn't really mind. I think that's a fresh match. Not super high on it, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah, even the good stuff was completely overshadowed by all the bad. I mean, the Bryan Slater match was fine. It seemed to serve a purpose, but it was whatever. Sheamus and Crew, same thing. The Nakamura Strowman feud, who fucking cares? Sheamus and Shorty G again, who fucking cares? Roman Reigns versus King Corbin again, who fucking cares? They got, again, like I said earlier, to go full circle, the more things change on this show, the more they stay the same. Why do they think any of this is compelling television? Why do they think any of this will garner ratings for SmackDown? At some point, they're going to reach a point with this show where the ratings are as high as they were on USA. Maybe not anytime soon, but we're quickly approaching that point. The ratings aren't even that much higher than they are on Raw. That's concerning, because Fox is a much bigger network. That just goes to show how bad the show is. That's not good. So, that's SmackDown for February 7, 2020. Again, nothing really... I enjoyed some aspects of the show, but really, if you hadn't watched the show live or didn't watch it immediately after the fact, don't bother. It's a total waste. So we should be back next Saturday with another SmackDown review. Always appreciate you guys checking these out on nextdaywrestling.net as well as on YouTube. So be sure to, if you're watching or listening on YouTube rather, be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. All that stuff is greatly appreciated. We're quickly approaching the 4,000 subscriber mark, so spread the word. Help us get to that landmark, that awesome milestone. I appreciate it. And, more content going up here on the channel throughout the weekend, next week, whatever. Next week, or rather tomorrow, might just be more miscellaneous content just because I don't think there's anything new airing on the network until Monday at the earliest. So, just stay tuned here to the channel. Like I said, we should be back next Saturday with an all-new SmackDown review where Mandy and Otis are going on a date, baby, for Valentine's Day. And I'll be going on a date, too, with Alexis. So, I'm not even sure if I'll be watching the show live. Maybe, I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what her schedule is. Hey, I don't know why the fuck in my sane mind I would want to work around SmackDown. I would rather catch up later that night, if not the next day. I don't know why we would try to get back to the house in time to watch SmackDown of all shows when it's as bad as it is at the moment, but that's just what I do. So I guess we'll soon see, but I will probably, more likely than not, have a audio review of SmackDown up and ready next week, and not minutes to midnight either. I know I recorded it very early last week. The issue was that I went out right afterward and didn't have the chance to publish it until early Saturday morning, or really late Saturday night. So hopefully that's not an issue next week. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I'm Graham G. Matthews. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the XFL games on today. I don't know if this is going up before the games or not, but I will be watching the first one, so there is that. I got to go do some grocery shopping and then come back and watch the game. I'll be ready. Let's go Los Angeles, whatever the fucking team is. Have a great one, guys. I'm Graham G. Matthews again, and I'll catch your ass down the road.